Hey, it is 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and welcome to week number two of Introduction to Corrections. And as you know, my name is Richard Wright. Let's see, I think the recording is still going on. Yep. So um, I'm going to spend some time today going over the assignments for this week. Some of you have already asked me about it, and so I will. And then the other thing is that be aware that you will discover that we have discussion posts this week. And your discussion posts, initial posts are due tonight at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, and your reply posts are due on Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also, I should point out to you that each of you should have received an invitation to meet with a tutor. Did you get it? Did each of you get one? Did you get an invitation from um, the chair of the School of Justice Studies, Rose Pagacic? Some of you may know her. Um, did you get that? You can type in the chat box. Did you get it? Okay, I gotta make sure that I mute everybody. Okay, that's mine. Okay, I got you. Okay, let's go look at this. Let's mute all. Whoops, I gotta go back and do that. Mute all. So everybody should be muted. Now I see, yep, looks like everyone's muted and you can't unmute yourself. And get rid of that entry and exit tone and that. Okay, so anyway, as I asked, did you get okay, Juan says he's early. You're early? It's 7:03. We start at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard. You are in the Introduction to Corrections class, right? So some students have come to the wrong lecture. Yesterday on Monday, I had at 7 o'clock constitutional law. Tonight I have Introduction to Corrections. Tomorrow night I have contemporary issues in criminal justice at 7 p.m. Okay, all right. Well, anyway, the question I'm asked: did you guys get a message encouraging you to go to a tutor match from Rose Pagacic? Did anybody get it? Okay. Okay. Then you should check um, your emails because it would be in the I think it's in the course email, but it would be an email form that it comes to you, and very important. But the entire class was sent. Did you get one, Juan? Okay. But anyway, you can check later, actually. But um, it's going to come from Rose Pugachik, and it's going to say, as I see it in my inbox, uh, it's a tutor match invite, and it tells who she is. She's the department chair, and says she invites you to meet with a fellow student who's already taken this course, and meeting with a tutor. Okay, you should have that. All right, so now let's get into the module. And let me share it, my screen. I got to get this out of here. Okay, it should be sharing. Okay, there it is. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to go over is the announcements. So the announcement that I want to pay close attention to is one that I talked about last week, and that is from the Library and Learning Center, fall webinars. And you can see that there was one today at 12:15 Central Standard Time. And then there will be another one on Thursday. I encourage you to go to that because it deals with the basics of APA, especially those of you who are not familiar with APA. This will be a great bit of help to you. And then next week, the 19th, a week from today, there will be an advanced seminar. So you click on that link up there in the calendar, and then you can um, get involved in that. But I highly, 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 highly recommend that. Just like I also highly recommend that you take advantage of that tutor session as well. So let's look at the announcements for this week. So we're dealing this week with adults, juveniles, and criminal behavior, chapters 6, 12, and 17 of the textbook, along with the PowerPoints that I sent you. You should each have these PowerPoints. And then we're gonna deal with theories impacting corrections, incarceration, and the criminal experience, special populations, adult and correction system, and then finally the vocabulary review and the discussion assignment, adult and correction systems, which, as I said earlier, is due tonight. The initial post and the reply post due Saturday. And then your written assignments are correction systems, which I'll go over in a minute, and the quiz. And you already know about the quiz. You have 3 opportunities to take the quiz before the 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time Sunday due date. And I do encourage you to pay close attention to the rubrics. I'm going to talk about that again as well. So I will be grading your papers for week 1 before the end of this week. I've already graded a few, and you will see that as well. Okay, so those are the announcements that we have here. reminding you again with the course calendar, that's another place where you can find your due dates as well. Your initial post, as I said, is due tonight. The live lecture is tonight. The reply post is due Saturday. The key phrase, as well as the quiz, the last day of the quiz, and then the written assignment due on the 17th. Okay. So very, very, very important. All right. So that's where you can find it. I only do this because the fact that I want you to be able to find the information on the calendar there. Okay. So now let's get into the module 2. First, let's talk about the written assignment. Correctional systems. Pay close attention to what I'm going to be telling you. So here's how it works. And you have different individuals that fit into different groups from wide varieties. And these are individuals who are in our correction system. And special populations, which include, as it says, women, juveniles, elderly, mental illness, those with developmental disabilities, and veterans. So here's what you're going to do. Pay close attention. Select one of the special populations from below. One of these. Don't do two, just one. Okay? Create an action plan. Create an action plan. Now, let me explain to you what an action plan really is. You do it in APA format. In the first part, in the selected special population of one of those that you pick, provide an overview of the characteristics that define the group. So what you're going to do in the first part of your assignment is you're going to provide an overview of the characteristics. What is a substance abuser? What are offenders with mental illness? Offenders with developmental disabilities, HIV, women, juveniles, elderly offenders, long-term offenders, military veterans, sex offenders. You're going to pick one of them, and you're going to define the group as a special population. Before I go to rubric, but I want to make sure that everybody got that one point. Everybody got that? Okay, so it's APA. So what does that mean? That means you're going to have citations in the body. Now, listen to me good. Don't give me a brief sentence. Give me at least a couple paragraphs. At least a couple paragraphs. Remember, it's double space. Okay. So, and you can even caption it if you want to really do it really neat for organizational purposes. Part 1, selected special population, and then begin to say what your special population is that you selected and provide characteristics that define that special population. Straightforward. It's no curve. No curve. So now you move from part 1 to part 2, and you deal with the issue and solution. So what you're going to do is you're going to read these bullet points. Describe an issue that impacts your selected population in the system. So remember, you've given an overview of it. So let's say that you chose substance abusers. Okay, so you chose substance abusers. So then you're going to provide characteristics of what defines substance abusers. Lay it out. Then in part two, the first part, describe one of the issues. Didn't say two issues, an issue that impacts your special population. Then you go into, in terms of your paper, explain a solution to address the issues that you describe in the first part here. Provide credible sources. I already told you that. Citations in the body and references at the end. Now, the question that some students will ask is, how long does this have to be? It should be detailed enough to satisfy, let me say this, an academician. This is academics. We're not going one or two sentences real short. We're going to provide enough information that a reader can look at it and gather some knowledge. So really, you're going to just provide, it's a real easy assignment, very easy. Provide the characteristics of your special population. Of course, you select the first one first, and then the characteristics, and then describe an issue that affects your selected population. Now, when you select that issue, you should elaborate on it. Don't just say what the issue is, elaborate on it. And then provide a solution to address the issue. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. I think this is really easy. People look at it and they say, they see the thing that says action plan, and then they get kind of like, okay, what is that? If you look at these frequently asked questions, you'll see the answer, but I've already pretty much given it to you. Make sure it is in Word document form, okay? Not PowerPoint or any other. Now, let's look at the rubric that goes with this. Now, I'm going to ask you, what column do I want you to work from? Type the answer in the chat box. Which one of these columns in here? Everybody should realize mastery. Okay, Professor, you say that every week. I say it, but I keep saying it because if I don't see it taking place, but you got to understand, act as if proficiency, which is a B, C, D, and F. I think everybody in this class wants an A. Am I right? So I'm showing you how simple it is, uh, how simple it is for you to achieve that. Don't get caught up in dealing with these other three columns. So this should be familiar with what I'm showing you. The characteristics of the special population. We just talked about that. Provide exemplary overview of selected population with supporting credible sources. Another way of saying credible sources is citations in the body and references at the end. Okay? Then issue impacting. We talked about that. Exemplary description with thorough alignment to special population with thorough supporting evidence from credible sources. There it goes again. And then the solution, same thing. Exemplary explanation of proposed solution with thorough alignment to how it will address the issue and provide sources to support your answers to the proposed solution. And if you go down actually here, then it's just spelling, grammar, and things of that nature. Just make sure you have a cover page and a reference page. Any questions? Okay, what's the question? Go ahead. Uh, okay, wait a minute. I think, let me get that in because sometimes the chat pops up so fast. Okay. For the proposed solutions, do we have to come with our own words? Critical thinking should be in all your written assignments. That's why I'm laughing. We don't want you copying and pasting stuff. There are, and if you do use some material, use very small portions with quotes and citations. Always, not sometimes, always, we want to use your own analysis. That's what the critical thinking that we talked about last week is all about. And that's what we look for in terms of it. We want to be able to show that you can research, but we also want to be able to show that you can critique and analyze. If you look at the resources, writing help, frequently asked questions, then there it is there. But that's a question, and it's not a dumb question. It's a question that I want you to understand that I expect that, and every professor should expect that. Then somebody else asked another question. Oh, okay. Anything else? Or any more elaboration? Please don't hesitate to ask, because when I grade your paper, then you're gonna say, well, I was gonna ask, but when I was in the classroom, I used to tell my students, the dumb questions are the ones that are not asked. Any other questions? Everybody comprehends on a different method and different levels. I have no problem with that. I'm just offering the time to do it. Is everybody on Keo now? Okay. Okay. All right. So that's the written assignment for the week. I'm going to say this to you. It's very important for you to understand that these are not very complicated assignments, but following the instructions or directions is the key. That's why I talk about rubrics. And actually, rubrics take out the grading from me, and it gives it straight to you. Okay, so we got that, and you know that's due on Sunday. Discussion post. Because we're dealing with the topics of adult and juvenile correction systems, what I want you to do is to, and you can, um, options for written assignments, you can click on this, download this, and it will help you, and it might answer some of the questions that you ask. So for this discussion this week, we're going to be looking at the difference between adult and juvenile correction systems, and terminology, philosophy. I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight. In your initial post, excuse me, explain the difference between adult and juvenile correction systems. I think that a lot of people think that they're really different in terms of their goal. I kind of disagree, because the fact that I think they all should ultimately result in rehabilitation. So anyway, support the selection of one of the differences you explain by detailing a specific example, including terminology, why you believe the difference is important between the two. In your response, choose a peer who has a different position. Okay, some of you already have posted. Matter of fact, all of you who are in this class, in the lecture right now, have posted already, your initial post. Okay, any questions about that? And I do say this to you. I welcome additional posts, but the minimum is the initial post, which is due on Tuesday, and the reply post that's due on Saturday. Okay, so now we're actually done with the assignments, except the last one, which is pretty much the quiz. And I'm not, and I do encourage you, the way that you get ready for the quiz is to go over the material. And if you actually do the assignments, you will be prepared for the quiz, and then remind yourself at the end of this vocabulary review before you do it. You don't have it open when you do it, it's closed book. Just remember that. Okay, and then your live classroom phrase. All right, so that's your assignments. So let's talk about some of these things here. Excuse me. What are some theories that deal with corrections? What are some? And you'll find the answers pretty much by going through this yourself. But I'm just gonna point out to you, you can't hear what I'm hearing because I got my headphones on. But there are different theories that are laid out here, and here they are. There they are: the strain theory, the labeling theory, the differential association theory, subculture theory, control theory, and social learning theories. And the parties who are behind these theories, these are the three individuals that you will be engaged with in terms of it. So then the strain theory. So look at what happens with the strain. Now, let me say this to you. The influence on corrections, and they're talking about the strain society, strain theory. I always take offense to this one as a person who came from difficulties at home as a kid. You know my story, by the way. If you know it, adversity is a springboard to success, listen to it and you understand what I'm talking about. But here's what it does do. It does paint the picture of the average individual who finds themselves in corrections. When they use the strain theory, what they're really saying is the environment. It's the environment. That's really what they're saying. so that you can, and I hope you're taking notes and things, but the environment, it is so important. And believe that you are going to become that which you are raised in, or you're going to become how you're raised. I have had clients who uh, I represented them, I represented their children, I've represented grandchildren, and this is because those individuals bred that. And so this creates pressure on individuals and they end up in that situation. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm going to go to the next one. The labeling theory. Labeling theory. You're going to discover in just a few minutes that the labeling theory pretty much involves what, and it says self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what that is? You're you're a dummy. You're never going to learn anything. You are um, you're never going to accomplish anything. I had someone who actually told me, because my mother, the decisions that she made, my natural mother, that I was going to end up in the same mode, because that was the label they gave me, and told me I didn't have what it took to become a lawyer when I decided I wanted to become a lawyer. And so what unfortunately happens is people will buy into that, or I'll use this term, they'll drink the Kool-Aid. You ever heard that term before? Drink the Kool-Aid? Anybody ever heard that? Any of you? Lynn's never heard of it. Any? What about the other two? Any of you heard of that before? What about, okay, Juan, you ever heard it? Well, I don't know. But here's the point. Here's what it means. And I'll tell you what it originated from. Has anyone ever heard of Jim Jones and Guyana, where these people went to Guyana, led by this minister by the name of Jim Jones from the United States, and they uh, they all died because of a ritual where he had Kool-Aid that was spiked with cyanide or whatever, and the people drank this and they found the bodies all over the place. And have you ever heard of that before? Now that I've mentioned it, if you haven't heard it, Google. Um, well, yeah, obviously it is, but it was the mindset of people that were in bondage in cults that were here in the United States. And actually, I know people who were victims of that. I know people who died from it. There were older people, there were young people, there were children that were given it, but they all died. Except, you know who didn't die? Jim Jones. He was the one that administered to all of them. But check it out. You'll see. So, but what I'm trying to say is that when I say you drink the Kool-Aid, I didn't mean that you died from it. But what you did was you bought the words that the person labeled you with, and it became what they call a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you became that. You got that? So that's what that theory is. And watch this, and you'll see. So it gets to the point, and you can't hear what she's saying because I got my headphones on. But when you go back and look at this later, you can do it. It says that not everyone is subjected. Only those who find themselves in the labeling theory. What's the definition of a criminal? Anybody want to tell me before I tell you what it is? It's very simple. What's the definition of a criminal? Okay, I'm going to keep moving. Someone who got caught committing a crime and they're actually they either plead guilty or are found guilty. That's what a criminal is. So it says that the risk principle, it says the best way to manage crime is to do less. Well, what happens is that if you are buying into the label, that's going to become a way of life for you. And so what is said is what I just said a few minutes ago. When you go back and hear it, the lady said, and I could hear in my headset, she said, "You believe you're a criminal, and so guess what? You achieve what you believe, and you commit crime. That's labeling." Okay. So next we have the um, differential association theory. Now, 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 the question that comes about here is, how, what, who decides what's right or wrong? What is your position as to what is right and what is wrong? So, for example, they give you some things here to think about. Is it okay to speed? Is it okay to be late for work when your boss is on vacation? Oh, I mean, these are these are thoughts that enter you. Behavior is earned by association. You either decide I'm. This is what I be trying to tell you, you guys, as my students, even in class. Don't take the shortcut. Follow the processes out. Let me tell you something. There's a statement that you probably have heard: the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You've heard that before? You never heard that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line? Think about it. From point A to point B, if you go straight across, it's faster to get that way than to go around about, because you're going our way and then coming back. So you can get there faster. So here's my whole point is that with the differential association, you and this has to do with corrections, it's the decisions that individuals make. Okay. The key is your action supportive of the law, or you're going to try to figure out a way to get around the law? Therefore, you violate the law and you end up in corrections in some shape, form, or fashion. These are good points, but I'm trying to cut to the chase so you don't get too. I mean, you have a lot of material that you're reading, but I'm trying to break it down real simple for you. Okay. Oh, so it says right there on this little slide, it says the subculture theories. say it's all about your behavior. What do you conform to? What do you do? What do you think is acceptable for you to do? What becomes your way of life? What becomes uh, who you are? You ever heard the saying, "You are what you eat"? And what that simply means is exactly the same thing I just said. It becomes you. And if you eat bad food, then you're going to have poor health. If you make poor choices, you're going to have a tough life and you're going to probably end up in corrections. So what you're doing is you decide, you call the shots, you make the choice. Forget all this stuff, there's some of the stuff they talked about earlier, self-fulfilling prophecies, letting people label you. I ain't letting nobody label me. And I encourage my students to learn that themselves. That's why students say to me sometimes, they say, "Professor, I got so many challenges in life and things are hard. I just can't just stop saying that word can't." It's actually two words. Because once you do that, you have drunk the Kool-Aid. Now you know what I'm talking about. You have bought into it. You have accepted it. And do you know what many of my clients said when I was a criminal lawyer? I said, "Why did you do that?" They said, "That's all I know." Because they didn't want to venture out and learn anything else. This was what was taught to them. This is what they saw. This is what they decided to do. You can see and reject it. That's what yours truly did. I was around drugs. I was around serious alcohol. I was around violence. And then, if you listen to my story, domestic violence. But I've never in my entire life been charged with anything like any of those things, especially domestic violence. Mm-mm. But it was, "Oh, you're going to grow up like that because that's what you came out of." That's what people tried to say to me. Even my own family members, some of them did. Anyway, so culture theories. So by conforming. So a subculture to being a criminal is stealing, fighting, you know, those kinds of things. And remember what I'm trying to do for you. Remember, you're going to understand corrections. In order to correct somebody, you have to understand how people end up getting there. And everybody is not as strong as you are and not going to approach things. Some people have a breaking point that is not as strong as yours. Okay, we got to move along. The control theories. So, control theories. Why shouldn't we do something? Why do we violate the law? But about why we don't. That's what it says. So, you know why I don't? Because I know the consequences. There's a price that you're going to pay. Um, have you ever heard this term? Crime pays. Okay. Anybody else? You ever heard that crime pays? Well, what it means very simply is this. when you commit the crime, you can ultimately probably find yourself in a situation where you're going to end up doing the time. So what's the payment that you receive? The time. That makes sense now, Lynn, with that example? Okay. Um, Consequences. Stuff happens. You know, oh, woe is me. Don't, people walk around justifying their actions. Wrong is wrong, and wrong is wrong, and wrong is wrong. It's wrong, it's wrong. Crime is wrong. Crime is not to control people. Crime is to keep us to have a civilized society. It's rules, the law. That's what I tell people that we must follow to live in a civilized society. But transgressors find themselves in the corrections and must be corrected. This should be coming together now, some of this stuff. So control theories. Okay, okay, hold on. They're talking about Walter Reckless. You'll see this later. Excuse me. It, it, External, that is the social pressures to conform, your environment, what's around you. Then you drink the Kool-Aid and becomes internal, a self-concept and the influence. And then you begin to replicate that with your children and others you come into contact with, or you recruit. You know what criminals do? They look for people who agree with them, not people who don't agree with them. I'm telling you, in my years of being a lawyer, police officer, that's the essence of it. And so the whole thing is that you got to maintain control. The old thing of say no to drugs, well, that's a statement that basically demonstrates you got to control. It's not as simple as that. I'm not advocating that as a simple process. All I'm simply saying is that um, my grandma used to tell me this thing. She used to say, son, when you make your bed, you got to lay in it. Y'all ever heard those before? That before? It's actually something that African Americans, grandmas and grandmothers, and I know some Hispanic friends of mine. They'll say it in Spanish, but it's the same thing. In other words, you decide where you're going to go by what you do before you go there, or the road that you travel is the road where you can end up. Does that make sense? Okay. Remember, this is almost like psychology here. Say, oh yeah, but professor's talking about this. No, I'm talking about the mindset of individuals who find themselves in the correction system. Okay. And then these different theorists, which I'm not going to elaborate on because you'll have a chance to go back and look at it yourself. Okay. The social learning theory, as it says, observing what other people do, how people behave, how they respond. And that's how you learn. Um, Bad company tends to breed bad choices on the parts of many people. You agree with that? Agree with that? Because it is. It's the company you keep. I was talking to a mother yesterday on the phone who was telling me her son is charged with um, accessory to murder. And so when I questioned her about the situation, she said he didn't fire the shot. He was in the car with them. So he was in the passenger side. The driver was the one who got shot, and then there was a young man in the back seat. As it turned out, the young man in the back seat was the one who fired the shot through the seat that killed the guy. I said, okay, but wait a minute. What were they doing? Were they all together? Guess what the end result was? They were dealing with drugs. You see what I'm saying? Do you get my point by using this as an example? This is a real case, by the way, I just told you. So it brings it home. I used to do an illustration when people came to my office, and I would, if the parent, let's say, I'm gonna say the mother because that's commonly who did it, but if the mother brought the son or daughter, but most of the time it was son, but I did do females as well, and so they would say, well, I didn't really do anything. So I said, so you were there, right? Just like I asked this mother about this. I said, was your son there? She said, yes. So the illustration that I use is I would take I wouldn't do it for real, but I would ask this question. I'm going to let you all answer it. If I'm sitting next to you and you turn a water hose on and aim it at the person next to me, what's probably going to happen to me? No. I asked the question, if someone puts, well, yeah, but no. If the water hose is pointed at somebody and you're sitting next to them, what's going to happen to you, the person sitting next to them? We're talking about water. Yes, yes, you're going to get wet. So how come you got wet? Because you were there. That's why that young man is charged with an accessory, because he was involved in a poor choice, dealing in drugs with some friends of his, and the deal went bad. Everybody got you see how I'm tying this all together? Wrong place at wrong time. That's another way of saying it. Okay. All right. So observing how others behave, social learning. You know, so so what you're going to see is one of those theorists I told you. You're going to discover this from your reading, is that um, one learns from watching others. Look at the little boy. You see the little boy? He sees two adults. So what does he do? He does the same thing. We have a picture. That's a bad topic for me for today, but I mentioned it anyway. The White Sox lost today, so all right. So I'm not that excited about it. But anyway, we have a pitcher that used to be a Cub pitcher by the name of Kimbrel, Craig Kimbrel, and Craig has this weird kind of way that he pitches. He looks like a vulture getting ready. And they had a kid that was in the stands, and they had the camera on him, and they saw him doing that. So where did he learn that from? He learned it from Craig Kimbrell, watching him. So that's a statement for parents and adults. Watch what you do in front of your children. Because there was my mother used to say this uh, before she died. She said, son, don't do as I do, do as I say. That was wrong. That was some bad teaching. Um, a person calls, bill collector calls on the phone, and your mother says, they ask for your mother, and you say, Mom, this phone is for you. It's a bill collector. Tell them I'm not here. You see what you just did, don't you? So that's what I'm talking about. That's social learning theory. This stuff can be deep or it's not. I'm not trying to make it too deep for you. Our time is running out fast, but so I'm going to have to just tell you. So you're going to have to go through the rest of this yourself. But here's what I want to just conclude this part about. Um, Dealing with characteristics of your environment. This is a summary of what we just went over. Attitudes, beliefs, social support, the history of behavior. The greatest predictor of the future is past behavior. That's why oftentimes people develop who they are based on what they were before. People change, but it's still what contributes to criminal behavior. Um, that's why what happens is when an individual is caught doing a crime, one of the first suspects that they go after is somebody who committed crimes like that in the past. Personality characteristics, and then cognitive, emotional, dealing with anger, poor problem solving, and so forth. So, so anyway, and so you're going to go in and you're going to look at the rest of these things. I'm not going to spend time on them because we got other areas. Okay, but you get the idea about the theories. Incarceration and the prison experience. So there are all kinds of ways that people are incarcerated. There's a model that people are in. It's called the custodial. Then there's a reintegration. Then the rehabilitation. Very quickly, the custodial model deals with security and discipline. Okay, the rehabilitation is my favorite. Emphasizes the treatment that a person needs, such as drugs, alcohol, education, uh, skills, trades, and things of that nature. Reintegration emphasizes uh, the ties that the individual has. So you have people, you have your family ties, you have the community, you have, like for example, we have people in our church that have been in trouble and come out and we deal with helping them. And so the key thing is help them to uh, come back into the community, because keep in mind, everybody that you incarcerate, almost everybody ends up back into the community. But notice what happens. All of this is overlapping and it comes together. Okay, and these are the three different models that are involved. Okay, you have different levels of prisons. Maximum, where this is where the bad, real bad individuals go, and it keeps them locked up all the time. The medium is a little less rigid and deals with giving you some ability to be able to socialize, and then the minimum, you have a whole lot of freedom to be able to go in. So those are the things. All right, and then the prison experience deals with 5 factors that are problematic. Not enough people to do the job, the design of the prison, when you're held in close quarters with too many people, it creates a problem. Weapons are available, believe it or not, in prison. The housing, sometimes not the best. And then, as I said, the close quarters. So those are just some of the things. All right. So that's the incarceration and prison experience that you run into. Again, now the special populations, this is what your assignment is all about. Your written assignment. Give me a couple of minutes and we're going to go through this. We might go 10 over, but I want to try to make sure that you have enough information here. So you're going to, all right, define special populations and then the types of special populations. So in terms of defining them, this is where you can find that information. I'm not going to elaborate on it because I don't want to keep you an hour and a half. And then your types of special populations. See, you see where I'm going with this? You see why I'm pointing this out to you and showing you where you could find some information to help you to get your feet wet in terms of completing your assignment. Dealing with substance abusers, and you click on that and explain. Now, you're going to have to do some research, but these are some things that will point you out. Dealing with drug courts and dealing with alcohol legal. I think one of the problems, believe it or not, we got all these cannabis or marijuana houses all over the place in our communities where people can have legalized it. There's a whole nother discussion which I won't break into in this class because I teach drugs and crimes. Offenders with developmental disabilities are in as well. So that's the end of that. And then you deal with general offenders, AIDS, with those with AIDS, you click on that, military, sex offenders. Okay. And so that's what special populations are. So that's a source for you to start. I'm not saying that's where you get all your information, but do some research about whatever that one that you picked, okay, and focus on it. And so the difference between adult and juvenile correction systems, that's something that we're dealing with today through the discussion assignment. And it tells you some differences. You can go through in juvenile treatment, they're young, and we want to rehabilitate those individuals. Families are involved heavily. Peers are who influences them, and they have little responsibility for others. They're, like I said, easy to change, and we catch them at an early age. So there's less emphasis on punishment and more on individualized treatment. Like I said, more towards rehabilitation. The adult system, on the other hand, historically deals with punishment. But now we start to historically deal with the idea that punishment is an important part of corrections. But I still say that I justify the rehabilitation aspects to be included in the adult system because of the fact that we want people to become um, non-recidivists. A recidivist is a repeat offender. And I can tell you guys, in my years, I had so many clients that I made so much money off of because they would get found not guilty, or either they get a light sentence and they'd come out and then they'd get back in trouble and back again. And so what we need to do is change that revolving door, that gerbil stuck on that wheel, and get these people to the point where they can make better decisions. Someone said, well, that could get you done out of a job. That's okay. It's okay. Because as I get older, I want less crime. I want fewer criminals. I want people to be able to make better choices, because who become the victims? Those of us who are seniors become victims all too often, or children, one or the other. So it talks about the adult system. That's why I talk about rehabilitation, providing the opportunities for education. It is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. That's a fact. Um, so then we start talking about the juvenile system. It does not value punishment. Instead, deals with rehabilitation and change through support, mentors, treatment, and services. Again, this is moving also into the adult system as well, and I encourage it. I teach my students that you're going to be correction officers. You're going to deal with primarily adults, unless you become a youth probation officer. Okay. And then, these are questions that you can go through and practice yourself. And so, what's a juvenile petition? A petition is an outcome of the case, the formal charges, taken into custody, or the person charged. Which one is it? The first, the second, the third, or the fourth? It's this answer. Okay. So you go through and you begin to get those things. All right. So that's the difference between the two. And so now we have finished. So to get you prepared for your exam, go through the knowledge check. I'm not going to go through the whole thing with you, but you know what and there's 21 of these. What we target to match interventions in individual criminogenic needs, um, those most highly correlated with recidivism. And so that actually is something we've talked about, but you'll find that out when you get into the situation. So some people might think it's the need principle. Some think it's the risk principle. Let's see what you think if you write that, if you have that one. So you're wrong. It was actually the other one. And so the point of the matter is that you're going to study these things, but you got to get them right because they're going to be on the test. Okay, so I'm not going to go over that. That's your knowledge check. So that's it I have for tonight. I hope that I've helped you to understand um, this stuff. It can get kind of esoteric sometimes. Um, any questions? No questions? How about the key phrase? Anybody have any ideas? I already know what it is that I wanted to give. Any suggestions between Andrew, Juan, Lynn, any? Okay, nobody's taking me on. Special populations. That's it. Special populations. Give me that and you get your points. You guys who are here can put it in a Dropbox and get your points tonight. All right, so I hope that, as they say, the cloud that was over you before this lecture has been lifted somewhat, and that you understand more about what this is about. If you do need any more further assistance, you know what to do. I'm laying it on you. If you don't do it, shame on you. All right, I'll see you guys next week at 8:30. 8:30. I'm so used to saying that. 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, pay close attention to those APA announcements that I told you about. and also watch for that tutor match, because these are students who have taken this class already, who have been selected by the school to help students. They're not going to do your assignments for you. They know better, but they're going to guide you and instruct you and help you as well. Okay, guys, see you. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and take care of what you need. And then, like I said again, let me know if you need anything. Good night, guys. Have a good week.